9 is 7. Give me all of them. That's what I thought he would do. And he did some reverse osmosis math on that one. I was like, okay, all right. That's a great cut. It's an outstanding cut.
Yeah.
Best part of it is
that cracked me up.
Yeah, I'm laughing. I cut it at halftime, and I'm laughing so loud in the press box. And you don't know how loud you're laughing because you have your earbuds in. And so I had the earbuds in as I'm editing. And I'm like, was I laughing really loud? I look behind me, everybody's staring at me. I'm like, I guess I was laughing fairly loud. Again, unique game, ebbs and flows like you don't see every week. You get a 14-0 lead. Great first drive where you're like, okay, everything's good. Great field position. Go down and get points. Finish your drive. Be efficient. All of that. Perfect. Then you get the huge special teams play. And you're like, okay, we're rolling. And then you look up and they're down 21-7. I mean, 21-14. And you're like, what just happened? How did this happen so fast? And then give Nebraska props for being in a really tough situation at 3rd and 10, had been struggling, got out of rhythm. They were off the field for like 30 minutes at one point. They were off the field for 30 minutes. Where was I? Why did I wrote that down? Off the field for 30 minutes over the course of the blocked punt and then, of course, the long drive, which was 17 plays. There were 2 DPIs that forced the drive to keep going. Michigan State ends up scoring on a wacky play. But still, I mean, it's just a weird game. Great play on 3rd and 10 by Nebraska, getting the ball to Ja'Cory Barney, which ends up leading to an Emmett Johnson touchdown. So all of a sudden it's even. Then you get a great punt return, right? Now the punt return. You get the kickoff that gets stuck up in the wind. You got 2 players going, how do we catch this? They call for a fair catch. Doesn't matter. Nebraska gets the ball in great field position and doesn't get a touchdown, gets a field goal. So you have the lead. And you feel, okay, you feel pretty good about this at this point. And then the dagger, right? It seems like every week you're like, is it going to be Dane Key this week? I know Barney's going to get his because he's been getting it every week. Or is it Isaiah Hunter? Who's going to be the guy? And this week, obviously, it was Hunter with one shoe running down the sideline, automatically became a top 10 ESPN play, a top 10 BTN play. By getting that touchdown. And it's essentially the dagger at that point, going up and getting that score. But it's just so strange, and we're going to go over some of the strangeness that happened in the game, of course. Go over some of our plays and stats that we're going to follow all year. I thought this year there were 3 things we wanted to look at every Sunday, and it was starting field position, because in general, Nebraska hasn't been winning that over the years. Very good yesterday. Almost all game, because of the wind, because of turnovers, because of punt returns, Nebraska was really solid in starting field position. Won that easily. The other one, of course, is, and I talk a lot about, havoc and what you have to do defensively. That was the most havoc game for both teams. There was so much havoc. Yep. There was so much happening. On Big Red Wrap-Up this past week, Jay Foreman ended up on the set a little bit longer than normal because we had a special dedication for Matt Vrzal in our second segment. So Jay ended up on the third segment. And so he went all the way to the end. So he got to do something that most guests don't get to do. He got to do the burning questions. And his burning question was, how many tackles will the linebackers have? It better be more than 20, he said. Javin Wright had 10. Vincent Shavers had 9. And the next highest linebacker is Dawson Merritt with 2. That puts you over 20. Burning question answered for Jay Moore. Linebackers having a great game. Javin Wright, Buddha Wright, 10 total tackles, 4 solo, half a sack, 3.5 tackles for loss. The only thing he didn't do was go up in the stands and serve runs. Did everything else could have possibly done. Buddha, in his 7th season, been around forever. Great job by him. Vincent Shavers running around, making plays. Didn't get the start this week. Actually started the freshman, Dawson Merritt. I thought that he would get a chance because that kid's got a hell of a future ahead of him. Hopefully everything works out with, NIL and all that. I know you can't really get excited for people's future anymore because you don't know if they'll really be here. You just don't know. But Dawson Merritt, as a freshman, you see the instincts. He's got to get bigger, obviously get bigger and stronger, but that's going to be a really good player. So, and also we're going to look at finishing drive rate, which we always look at. And Nebraska, good job yesterday, getting into the red zone. 2 touchdowns, 1 field goal. You'd love to get 3 touchdowns, but you don't. Going over the 40-yard line, your opponent's 40-yard line 6 times, ending up with 31 total points doing that, which is very efficient for Nebraska. Over 5 points, a successful drive. So good game overall for the Huskers. And after 9 o'clock, we will chat with our friend Stephen M. Sipple and go over his thoughts from the game. He was very high this week. And if I just stopped right there, you'd be like, what? On Aiden Childs and how good he thought Aiden Childs could be. And we had a conversation over 2 quarterbacks in the Big Ten, Aiden Childs and Maeva from USC, and who was the better quarterback. And I'm like, I think Maeva is growing into a very solid quarterback. He went to the right place. He's getting great quarterback tutelage. He's throwing the ball more accurate. He's putting more touch on the balls. I would say I think Jordan Maeva could work his way into a first-round pick. And Sip wanted none of it. He's like, it's not even close. It's not that. Listen, Childs took a beating yesterday, and kept coming back until the end when he finally was like, look, I got nothing left. I am beat up. Let's put the backup in with one of the hardest last names in the history of football and put him and let him go make a play. But we will talk to Stephen M. Sipple after 9 o'clock as well. We'll chat with him about what's going on with the team and his thoughts and heading on to playing on the road for the really, really first time this season, going to Maryland and then, of course, going to Michigan State as well, which is gonna be an awesome road trip for those guys getting out of town and going play there. So we'll get into that. We'll also preview a little bit that game against Maryland. Maryland had a very good chance to being undefeated and probably ranked if they can beat Washington. They've got the lead. I think at the largest it was 20-3. And at the end, they get outscored in the fourth quarter, and Washington wins the game 24-20. So you don't get a ranked Maryland team next week, but you get a team that's playing better than most people thought they would this year. All right, let's go to the phones. You can always contact the show at 402-951-1620. We lead off with Michael this morning. Good morning, Michael.
Hey, Michael. Good morning. Hey, thanks for taking my call. One quick question, and I'll hang up and listen.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on the Penn State-UCLA game. Have a good day, Michael.
Appreciate it. Thank you. I told this to Peter before we got started. I thought for sure that 24.5 for UCLA was a gift. I'm like, you're talking about Penn State going 5 hours. I know what the time zones are, but 5-hour flight out to California and coming off of an emotional game where you thought you could beat Oregon at home and then going all the way out there, playing in an early time slot. I thought all along UCLA was the pick against the line. I thought Penn State would rally in the second half, realizing you're getting ready to lose to an 0-4. I saw a stat, and I don't remember exactly the wording for it, but I think it was the first time ever that an 0-4 team has beaten a top 10 team. I thought that's what I read.
I saw a report or a little rundown. It's happened 3 times, and I think the last time was like 1950s.
Oh wow,
it's way
that's an embarrassing loss.
So like if we're talking modern era, definitely the first time.
That's incredible. Like look, so I've been a Penn State fan most of my life. I lived there on campus as a kid. My dad cooked there. I've liked Penn State since 1978, and James Franklin continues to be such an enigma. This is a guy who obviously can't win the big one, but for the most part, throughout his career, this is a game they always won. Matter of fact, their winning record against teams when they were at least favored by 7 points is astronomical, one of the best in all of college football. And in the end, you have a situation where he blows that game. And part of it is, I think, the way he gets his team going and motivated, but I don't think he lets his coordinators coach very well either, because I think Kolenicki is a great offensive coordinator, and for whatever reason, they keep getting out to these slow starts. It's very strange to watch a game like that and watch a Penn State team that has lots of talent, and I think they're not getting enough out of Drew Aller. He's got to run more. I mean, there's a lot going on with Penn State, but we're talking about Nebraska here. Before we take our first break, and also always Severe Reaction brought to you by our good friends at Equitable Bank, where they take banking personally, answer the phone on the first ring, and take care of you, the customer, and also Nebraska Medicine, We appreciate them as well. They're always looking for people to be helping them out in terms of employment. So look up on the website for nebraskamed.com, and you can do that. Before we take a break, we'll go to KG. What's going on, KG? How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Hey, a W's a W. I'll take it. And my big question is for the offense. The inconsistency, they're kind of like a roller coaster. Sometimes they look like goal beaters, and sometimes look like they haven't played the game. And I just wonder what your thoughts on that are.
Yeah, I appreciate it, KG. You kind of breaking up a little bit, but I think you're talking about the inconsistency of the offense. And I thought part of it was you do get out of a rhythm when you're sitting on the bench for as long as they sit on the bench. I get that. I thought, and I said this in our pregame show in 1620 Zone, the pregame show, you have a whole week to prepare for a team, and your pass defense is struggling like it is for Michigan State. You're going to come out there and you're going to say, we're going to stop them from throwing the ball. No matter what else happens, we're going to play like Cincinnati did or whatever else, maybe in a play in a system, maybe 3 deep. You're going to worry more about keeping everything in front of you. You're not going to let your weakness be beaten by their strength. Nebraska was the best passing team in the Big Ten coming in, and Michigan State was second worst in pass defense. So I knew they'd be prepared for that. I thought Nebraska's advantage would actually be running the ball against them, especially early on, because I thought they'd be playing the pass. So getting off of schedule, one sitting on the bench, the other not having some success on first down, all of that leads to the inconsistency. And it's Dylan Raiola not getting rid of the ball quickly. There's too many incidents where a guy is open right away and he's got to let it go, and he's either looking for a bigger, better play, or he doesn't want to put it in a situation where he thinks might be a little bit of danger, being a little safe. That needs to change. I've said that since the beginning. There's too many times where right off the snap, the first guy comes open, and instead of letting it go and getting those 4 yards or getting that first down, or like the pass that he could have thrown on the field goal drive to Emmett Johnson, who's coming across, that's a touchdown. That ball's got to come out. And I know he's getting some pressure, but he wasn't getting the kind of pressure on that play to where he couldn't see Emmett Johnson. But still, that's a big part of it as well. One more call, then we'll take a break. Andrew, good morning. How are you?
Hey, how you doing, buddy?
Pretty good, man. How are you been?
Not too bad. First of all, I want to start off with your reference of blending Run DMC and Betty Davis Eyes in the pregame. was poetry.
Thank you.
I mean, is there going to be a real lot talk about the offensive line, you think, on the coaching staff?
Yeah.
Wise, or do you think it's just what we have and we're just going to get through it this year?
Appreciate the call, Andrew. Have a good rest of your weekend.
Yeah.
I will say this. 2 things about that. It's not all the offensive line, although there was struggles. It's not all the offensive line. Part of it's play calling, part of it's decision-making at the quarterback position. But I think even if you sat down and you talked to Donovan Raiola, he would tell you that there are some issues they have. I don't know if they have confidence enough in some of the other backups to try them out and get them in. I have to go back. I rewatched the game last night and some this morning, but I want to go back and do the look at when you're watching the offensive line the whole time. I don't know what Gunner did. I'll look at the scores coming up from PFF. I know there was a couple times where Pritchard struggled in some rushes. His balance isn't great. He's a big, strong guy who lets people get into his body sometimes, and he's got to use that long wingspan better. But anyway, I'm looking forward to looking back and seeing how they played. I think it's more than just one thing. That's the issue. And you were going against a team that was averaging 1.5 sacks a game, and they got 5 on you and a bunch more pressures. That's concerning going forward, because Michigan State does not do a good job of getting to the passer, and they did on Saturday. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll get into some of the good, the bad, also more of your phone calls, 402-951-1620. Do want to say that we are dedicating the rest of these shows this season to our friend Matt Verzal, who passed away. Of course, Matt did, the hangover shows here and other places for a long time, recapping these games, and we hope that we can, do well enough to honor his memory when we do these post-game shows. And so I just want to honor Matt Verzal the rest of the season when we look back on the games on a Sunday morning, something he did very well for a very long time. We're back here on Severe Reaction on 1620 The Zone.
3rd and 8 at the 46, and now flags down as they took the snap. The Huskers jumped.
Yeah,
I think it was
so
Pritchett.
The interest, Nebraska doesn't have to let Michigan State sub. Once they set the ball for play, snap the ball.
I'm not sure Dylan knew that. That's why there was some sort of hesitation to snap the ball.
I think the offensive line did, and I'm not defending Pritchett, but that's a long time for them to be in their stance.
Jay Coyne is the fullback. Deep back Frazier. Milivojevic under center. Takes a snap off a spin. Play fake. Boots right. Floats one back middle of the end zone. Jack Velling, the tight end, is wide open on the Orange Huskers end zone left. A 1-yard flip into the end zone, and Michigan State's on the board. Trail 14-6 with 12:52 for the half.
Our whole focus this week, our whole defensive focus was stop the run, no big plays to 1 and 6, and tackle 2. And so, they held them under 100 yards rushing. So I know we're not very good run defense, but we were today. and I mean that sincerely. We haven't been a good run defense. Well, today we were, and so that's a challenge to our guys. But then the quarterback, we didn't tackle the quarterback well enough. So I've said it on record many times. I love this team. Even at the end, Sierra, I was very positive, and then Sierra got up and he was furious about that last drive that we let that backup quarterback move the ball down the field. So they're hungry for more.
Nebraska moves to 4-1 with the win over Michigan State. I do believe Nebraska will be ranked somewhere between 22 and 25 when everything comes out this afternoon. When I do a ranking for Pro Football Focus for the Pro Football Writers Association, I was looking at the PFF grades. And when we do top 16, we do a Super 16. And going through the numbers and looking at what everybody is, I think Nebraska will be ranked in the AP or the coaches poll. We'll see. We'll see how it goes, but I think they will be. Looking at the offensive line grades from PFF, so Gunnar Gatula, which I thought he played well, but sometimes you want to look at the grades. He had the highest overall grade. Almost 80 was his grade. His pass grade was great. Run grade was great. Pritchett, number 2, 72.8 was his grade. He gave the 2 sacks and had the 1 penalty. And Gunnar had a penalty as well. And then Rocco Spindler. And actually, this is weird because the interior of the offensive line, grade-wise, graded much lower than the 2 tackles. And everybody wants to talk about the tackles, but Spindler, 67.9, which isn't horrible. It's average. Justin Evans, 67.9. And the lowest grade out of the 5 starting offensive linemen was Henry Topsky, who was at 55.6. So, yeah. So the grade, looking at the grades, period. The tackles graded out well, man. And again, everything isn't always on the offensive line. It just isn't. I know what you think. I know you see one play, you see a guy get beat badly, and then maybe you don't see the next 7 plays where he plays well and does what he's supposed to do. That's one of the toughest things about, trying to grade offensive linemen, especially on the fly when you're just watching the game live. That's why even coaches who do it for a living say, let me go look at the tape and see how the offensive line played. I need to go look. And at least based off of the grades, you had a couple of tackles who a lot of people were very critical, who at least graded well. But we'll get more into that, of course. We'll talk to Stephen Himsipple after 9 o'clock. Let's go back to the phones. Doug joins us this morning. Good morning, Doug.
Hey, good morning. Hey, I just want to get your thoughts. You probably would break this down anyway, but start of the 4th quarter, we're on the 7-yard line, and just some of the strangest play calls, and we ended up with a field goal. And one was a fade to the corner. It was double covered. And it took it forever to develop. I don't know what. And then the flip pass to Heinrich Hartberg was weird. Why?
Yeah, I don't think, Doug, the flip pass was the call. I think he just got to the point where everything was covered and he just threw it to him. No, I agree. That's the drive where Emmett Johnson is open on the crosser for a touchdown. And he didn't see him. So yeah, they had a chance to score on that drive, but ended up getting a field goal. I appreciate the call. There's a few drives that I thought that you just were kind of scratching your head, Obviously, Nebraska gets a great punt return down to the 26-yard line. That is, you just look at that drive from the drive chart, it makes 0 sense. Because Nebraska gets the ball at the 26-yard line after the great punt return, and they then punt the ball from their own 42, and the ball doesn't even reach because of the wind. It doesn't even reach the first down of what the drive would have been. Something you just don't see. 3 plays, minus 32 yards, the 2 sacks, the fumbled snap or bad snap, whatever you want to call it for that, and you're sitting in a situation where, like, what just happened? And we've seen some weird drives over the years. There were a couple of them under Bo Pelini where Nebraska was in the red zone and ended up punting from their side of the back on their own side of the 50-yard line. So you've seen some crazy ones, but that was very strange. And one of the most disappointing parts of the game, and again, you win the game, you go 4-1, but you're always going to look and see how you can get better. Sudden change offense. So you get the great punt return, you get 0 points. You get 2 interceptions. And after 2 interceptions, one ends in downs, the other ends in a punt. Sudden change offense. You just been given a gift from the defense and the special teams, and you don't get anything out of it. And then even the short kickoff that gets in the wind, you only get a field goal from that. So those are situations where that's when you got to go get points. I know maybe you can't, you're going into the wind for a couple of those, so you are worrying about the throw. But if you listen to Dylan Raiola, he said the wind wasn't really an issue for him. It was about a 4-yard difference in terms of the throw, but overall it wasn't a problem for him, he said. So he said maybe, 1 or 2 bad passes, including the interception. But other than that, the wind didn't bother him as much. You've got to be able to, when the defense puts you in a position for sudden change, to get some points, to get a touchdown, put them out of their misery. And it could have been done quickly. Deshaun Singleton puts you in a situation twice where you're like, go out and take care of this game and put it away. Let's go back to the phones. That's where Eric is this morning. Good morning, Eric. What's going on?
Hey, man. How we doing today?
Pretty good.
Hey, I got an honest question, and I'm a diehard Husker fan. I've been watching a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like yesterday they were putting a lot of focus on Harburg.
Mm-hmm.
What the heck happened to Lindenmeyer? It was just seemed like sometimes you got to force the ball into your best players, and he's been one of our best players consistently this whole season. It just seemed like he only touched the ball maybe 2 times the entire game.
Yeah, Lindenmeyer had 1 target, Harburg had 1 target, and Carter Nelson had 1 target. They just didn't throw the ball to the tight ends much. They only had 3 targets to the tight ends. Running backs had the most targets, and then after that, you had Isaiah Hunter and Barney. Those are your target guys yesterday.
Well, and I mean, I know a lot of people talk about it, but Lindenmeyer's been a stud so far this season, and sometimes you just got to force that ball into your playmakers and give them a chance to go,
I agree. Lindenmeyer played 52 snaps out of 55 offensive snaps. Harburg only played 19. So Lindenmeyer was on the field the majority of the time. I agree about getting the ball in, though, to your playmakers. Thanks for the call, Eric. Sometimes open in the Big Ten is different than the concept of open some people have. They're guys that are covered, but they're open. If I got a big guy, he's 6'4", whatever, and he's between the defensive back or the linebacker, and I can put the ball into him, that's open in the Big Ten. And so that's got to happen. But Lindenmeyer was in a lot. He just didn't get a lot of targets for whatever reason. Got that early target on the scramble by Dylan. But other than that, that was it. And Isaiah Hunter had 6 targets, 4 catches. Barney, 4 targets, 2 catches, 1 drop. Dane Key, just 2 targets. Had 1 in the first drive and 1 in the second half. I think they were actually both in the first half. And Cortez Mills had 1 target and 1 catch. That was it. It just wasn't a ton going to the wide receivers. The biggest play, obviously, Jakari Barney making the catch on that little wheel route that they ran and making a big play, like he's been making a big play. And Isaiah Hunter, when that screen was thrown, did anybody think that was going to be a touchdown? I mean, he's immediately contacted. One of their better defensive linemen gets him around the ankle, pulls off the shoe, but he goes on for the touchdown, 59-yard tunnel screen. That was awesome. Brought to you by, of course, our friends at Equitable Bank. They take banking personally. And, of course, answer the phone in the first ring. We saw Doug. Old man Doug was outside of the event that we have in the pregame where we do 1620 The Zone pregame. He was out there at the Blur events. We appreciate him. And, of course, Nebraska Medicine as well. Extraordinary healthcare. I can speak as someone who has invested a lot of money into Nebraska Medicine for my kids and myself as well. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll get to the phones. Jim, stay right there. We'll grab you as soon as we come out of the break here on 1620 The Zone.
Another momentum play for this defense. 2 of 2 on 4th are the Spartans from the Huskers 16. Huskers lead 14-7. Trips in a triangle right. Nick Marsh. Tight near left. Shotgun snap to Childs. Free rusher comes. Childs zigzags out to his left. Will run at the 20, 15. Moves to his right at the 10. Breaks loose into the end zone. Touchdown, Michigan State. Can this defense find a way to hold Michigan State to 3? Spartans looking for their first lead today. We're down at 1 point, 14-0 in the first quarter. Childs under center. Straight eye. Deep back is Frazier. Childs takes a snap, quarterback sneak, and boy, he's in standing up. He went right through the zipper of the defense and in standing up on a quarterback sneak to take the lead is Aiden Childs.
We're not trying to prove anything to anybody. That's the biggest thing for us. Our guys have done a good job of blocking out everything. I mean, that's the second game in a row we've been booted home. Like, where guys are out there and they're mad. Like, Dylan's yelling at the crowd. Like, I'm like, don't yell at the crowd. Like, they paid their money to come here, right? You know what I'm saying? They're paying $12 for a beer. Like, you know what? It's part of the game. Like, go play well. When you're not playing well, go play well. And so we're not trying to prove anything. We're trying to play good football, and it's really hard. Like, the Big Ten is hard. And, like, it's not like, we're not focused. They got good players, too. And they game planned us, too. And so I think the biggest thing is we just keep hanging in there and playing. But I think this is a game in previous years we would have lost or not went the way it went. But we end up with a 17-point lead, and then we give up a touchdown. They're mad afterwards. So I like the mindset where it's headed. There's a ton of things we have to clean up. There's a ton of things we have to get better at.
Welcome back to Reaction here on 1620 The Zone. 402-951-1620, brought to you by Equitable Bank. We take banking personally, and brought to you by Nebraska Medicine. Join our team at nebraskamed.com/careers. Before they get too far into there, I think Dylan Gabriel is going to have a very good game for the Cleveland Browns today. I know that's not the expectation, but I think he's actually going to play really well. I know there's a lot of talk about Sanders and everything else. Dylan Gabriel, if nothing else, is an accurate quarterback who's very smart and has about 1,000 starts. I think he's going to play well. Real quick on that last soundbite we heard, I think the initial booing that you heard after that long drive when Michigan State finally scores, I think they were booing the officials. I don't think that was booing Nebraska. I think they were booing the officials because of 2 DPIs that extended that drive. I think that's why the crowd was booing right there. There was a later time when Nebraska was struggling on an offensive drive and had the sacks that I think there was some booing. But when it was the touchdown after Michigan State scored that first touchdown, that long drive, I really believe that was booing the officials because those 2 DPIs were close, right? I think one of them was more obvious than the other, but I think that's what they were booing. Not that they weren't booing the team. I think they were just booing the fact that the officials kept extending that drive and it went on forever, 17 plays. Let's go back to the phones, 402-951-1620. That's where Jim is this morning. Good morning, Jim.
Yeah, how are you this morning? Matt Rule just said everything I wanted to say. Big Ten's tough.
Yep.
And it's a big boy league. And, you got some young guys there still. It's going to take a few games. But I thought they looked okay. Yeah, they gave up a late touchdown, but
Yep.
It's not like the other team ain't going to try anyway. I don't get why people think they have to be critical of certain things. But go ahead.
All right. Thanks, Jim. I appreciate it. I mean, sometimes, we talk about criticism, and criticism isn't always a bad thing. It's not a bad word. Critiquing something is part of what fans are going to do, what eventually the coaching staff's going to do, what each player is going to do of themselves. So I understand there's different levels of it, right? To look and say, this is a critique. Coming into this game, Nebraska hadn't done a good enough job in the red zone and in terms of finishing drives. That's a critique. Not being mean, just honest. In this game, they did a better job. They had 12 drives. 6 of them were successful drives, and they got 31 total points out of those. Nebraska, in past years, because of special teams and some turnovers, did not do a very good job in starting field position at all. This year, and I have the numbers added up, this year, their starting field position has been great. And then yesterday, wow. To have a starting field position at your own 48-yard line, to have a better starting position, 18-yard difference in starting field position, that's great. So again, criticism, but not being a mean critic. It just, Nebraska's run defense was not good coming into the season. Coming into this game. Nebraska was giving up a little bit over 5 yards a rush and more than 150 yards rushing before coming into this game. Even when you take the quarterback rushing out of it, just against running backs, they weren't very good. Yesterday, they were great. Against the running backs, they were great. There were 5 total big plays running the ball. 3 of them were by the quarterback. So what Nebraska did yesterday as a run defense was so much better, and that's what they concentrated on in the bye week. And so anyway, you can be critical, but doesn't mean necessarily you're being mean. Let's go back to the phones. This is where Bob is. Good morning, Bob.
Hey, good morning, guys. A lot of things to talk about, but I'll just start with the one that's pretty glaring to me. Our 2 starting offensive tackles have now struggled against Michigan and now Michigan State. And I do agree with you. I don't put it 100% on them. A little bit of onus goes to the play calls, maybe some formations that can maybe help these kids out. I don't know, but I guess Dylan needs to learn to get rid of the ball a little quicker as well. There's no question there. Or make the read faster and get rid of the ball, or take off running, one of those 3. But at what point is the coaching staff going to make those adjustments to help those tackles out? Because moving forward, this schedule is brutal, man, and this could get ugly real quick. They're watching the blueprint of other teams being able to dismantle our offense in a pretty quick hurry. I just want your thoughts on that, if I could.
Yeah, I appreciate your call, Bob. It's interesting. So I'm gonna read you what the analysis was on those tackles from Pro Football Focus. Okay, just giving you. This is based off of something that isn't necessarily what we saw watching the game yesterday. But out of the 5 sacks that Michigan State got against Nebraska, only 2 of them were charged to the offensive line, and 3 pressures. So out of all that you saw back there, the offensive line, just according to Pro Football Focus, that's not the end-all be-all, I know. But out of all those pressures, only 3 of them were given to the offensive line, and only 2 of the sacks. It's on Dylan to get rid of the ball and to process and to make good decisions. It's on the offensive line to give him the time to do that. But if you go back and you watch any of Holgorsen's offenses, if the quarterback's holding the ball after 2.1 seconds, it's a surprise. The ball's out. It's gone. That's what has to happen here. It's got to be out. It's got to be gone. You got to make throws into tight coverages. You got to make throws that are right off the snap. You've got to make throws to guys who are open enough. That's what has to happen. I'm not saying the offensive line was perfect in any way last night. I'm not saying that the offensive tackles are having a great season. They're not. But the 2 have to work together. It is a machine, right? And Dylan's got to do what he's got to do. Holgorsen's got to call the right plays, and the offensive line has to do what they have to do all together at the same time. And for whatever reason, one of the 3 aren't necessarily working all the time. But I don't know if the offensive line played as poorly as maybe we think they did. But I can't wait to go back and watch the offensive line again and just isolate on that. Let's go back to the phones. That's where Matt is this morning. What's up, Matt?
Hey, I got a whole bunch of things, actually. Yeah. But so first up, like at the beginning of the season, we knew that the defense wasn't going to be able to hold as well as they could. And so one thing I've been looking for an improvement is the offense capable of putting 30 points on the board in Big Ten play?
Yeah.
And the reality is they are.
Sure.
They went 27 against Michigan, should have been 34,
yep.
With the misstep in the end zone. They went well over 30 yesterday.
31.
And so that is a really, sorry about that.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a big improvement over previous years.
Yep.
We could not crack even 25, let alone 30. And that is a really good indicator for us to get off of this 3 wins a year in conference for like 8 years running. And get into the world where we can win 5 or maybe even 6 conference games. So that's a really big positive. Few other things. I think out of what you just laid out, our play calling needs to recognize what's going on with the offensive line, and the fact that the book has been out on us for a year and a half on how to beat us, and that is to bring pressure. But that's been the book for a year and a half, and it hasn't changed. We need more quick hitters, and I'll give you an example. We were at in the second quarter, it's 14-7. It's third down, about midfield. It's 3rd and 5. We send 4 receivers down, 15 yards deep. We only need 5 yards for a first down. He doesn't have time to throw, and he's sacked. Dylan is excellent at 5, 6, 7, 8 yard crossing patterns to the wide receivers. We need to hit those more, and that needs to be more prevalent in our play calling. That's one thing that I can really see out there.
Yeah, I'm with you, Matt. Thank you very much. The critical part of this system, which is different than what Dana ran way back and what Mike Leach ran, is the tight end and dominating the middle of the field. The middle of the field was dominated in their old system by those interior wide receivers, which had their own coach. That's how valuable they were to the system. And the air raid needed those guys in the middle of the field, crossing routes, mesh routes, using the umpire, doing all of that. That's now done with both the tight ends and also done with your running backs. And so I think getting the ball to them more and then coming off of that and taking some more deep shots to your wide receivers. I think deep shots in this system are one of the most important parts of making sure that you are going to be able to operate at a high level. So, 4 verts, that's the key to the old air raid, right? 4 verts. That's how you're going to run most of your stuff. Any of you who played any of the video games, you know what that means and you know what it does. Coming off of that is you get that cornerback, safety, whoever else turned, and as soon as they're turned, back shoulder throws. We haven't seen a ton of those from Dylan. They haven't run a ton of them. I'd like to see more of them. Dig routes, where again, you're getting them on their heels, right? And then you're turning and coming back hard to Dylan. I want to see more of that. That doesn't take very long. That's a 2-second route, and the ball comes out, and you make the plays. I think more of that. Yes, you're probably going to have to help your tackles on some plays. The key to this whole offense, though, is, and you know this, it's first down. It's getting 5 or more yards on first down. If you can do that, you're going to stay on. Not only are you going to stay on schedule, but you are going to score more than 30 points the majority of the time against most of the defenses you play against the rest of the way. That's what's going to happen. One more call before we take a break. Let's go to Jeff. Good morning, Jeff.
Hey, Michael. Good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well.
Good. Hey, I want to take credit for the win on Saturday.
Okay.
And I'll explain why.
Okay.
When Michigan State went up 21-14, I texted my wife from the stadium, I am done with this team for the rest of the year. And then they went on the run.
Yeah.
And then also go back to the play calling. Like when it was 3rd, 4, and we know we were going to go for it on 4th down, why do you not try to run a play that gets you just a couple of yards?
I know.
Get it so it's 4th and 2. And then my final thought is, how's that Saints under still looking for the season?
Looking great. The Saints under looking great, although I think they might win today. I'm a little nervous.
More than a few more. All right. Have
All
a
right.
good one.
Take it easy, Jeff. Yeah, the Saints under is looking really good. I believe it ended up being 4.5, which if they get to 5 wins, it'd be like a miracle. Anyway, yeah. So there's so much, and we're gonna take a break. Come back. I'm gonna go over some of the good because there was a lot of good from yesterday. Right. We're gonna go over some of that when we come back. Brought to you by Equitable Bank, where we take banking personally, and Nebraska Medicine. Join the Nebraska Medicine team. NebraskaMed.com/careers. More on Severe Reaction 1620 The Zone.
Archie had 2 boots of over 50 last week. 2 weeks ago, after the bye. Oh, they snap it to the up man, sprinting up the middle. It's Harburg, lunges the football. Was he short? They say he is. The far side official has him short at the 48. They tried to fake it, and Michigan State made the tackle on Harburg, and it will be a 1st and 10 near midfield.
You know, like he prepared all week to block that punt. We told the team he's going to block the punt. Not we hope he blocks the punt. Hey, go block the punt. We said he's going to block the punt. He blocked the punt. Carter scored the touchdown. Should have scored again the second one. So, and you know what? I don't care about the punt. If I'm being really honest with you guys, the punt fake was the right call. Like I'm saying, like we're going to put the ball in our guys' hands with a chance to make plays. And we still even had him stopped on that drive. It was 4th and 4. We came unblocked. You know, we trust our defense. And so we're not going to make our decisions based just on the results. We trust our players, and that's the biggest thing. That game right there, Sam, that was UCLA to me last year. That felt like it at the half. It felt like come on, guys. And you know what? They went after it.
Welcome back. Severe Reaction on 1620 The Zone. Peter Krinzer plays the best music coming out of breaks.
Little mix of everything.
That's right. That's
little
cool.
Peacemaker action.
Outstanding. That is very good. What went well for Nebraska yesterday? I mean, you got to start with run defense, right? 2.2 yards a rush. They allowed 6 big runs, and that's defined, of course, at 10 plus, 79 yards, but 3 of them for 40 yards were the quarterback. And the longest one was that 16-yard touchdown run that, look, man, sometimes an athlete is going to make a play, and you have to go, dude made a play. Dude made a play. The one chance you had was I thought Singleton had an angle on him, and he dove, and if maybe he could have hit him a little higher on his leg, maybe he gets him off balance. But, give props to Childs on that run. That was incredible. Special teams, block punt, 7 points. Punt return to the 26, didn't get points off that drive. You had the punt return, block in the back, called back. Carter Nelson apologized to Ja'Cory Barney for that. He said it was selfish doing that push in the back. The short pop-up kickoff was perfect. Of course, Michigan State misplayed that. That led to a field goal. That's the go-ahead score. Go up 24-21. Coach was talking about the attempted fake punt. I love that. Even if you don't make it, you're putting it on tape. It's something that a team's got to prepare for. They're going to spend, 20 minutes or whatever preparing for that. That's great. And honestly, it should have worked. Probably should have worked. They allowed 0 punt returns on 4 punts. Barney went 4 for 81. Barney already has more punt return yards than anybody's had going back to like 2019. And I think I got to look back. I think he even passed what Spielman had. Was it Spielman that had in 2019? I think it was. And then no kickoff returns because of all the wind. So overall, special teams, man, we talked about before the season, how many times did Nebraska lose games because of special teams? Is it a 1 or 2 win difference? Obviously, Nebraska won 6 games during the regular season last year. If it's a 1 or 2 win difference, that's 8. I thought Nebraska had a really good chance to get to 8. That's why I picked 9, because I thought special teams would be that extra one for 9 and 3. And Isaiah Hunter, man, what can you say about a guy who runs down the field with one shoe on? And the wide receivers overall, only 1 dropped pass that was registered by Ja'Cory Barney, and 4 receptions for 93 yards for Isaiah Hunter, your offensive MVP of the game. And Ja'Cory Barney overall, 128 all-purpose yards. Those are all really good things and things that we had questions about coming into the game. There were 3 things that I had questions about coming into the game. Would Nebraska's run defense be able to step up and contain 2 pretty good running backs who I think are going to have a nice season for the rest of the year, especially if Childs is healthy, right? Being able to come off of him and be able to get some yards. So contain them. The second was could you actually create some havoc? Nebraska's been struggling being able to do that. 4 sacks, bunch of tackles for losses. Linebackers made a bunch of big plays. You had 2 interceptions. That's a lot of havoc. Got that done. And then the third one was, could Nebraska's pass defense take advantage, could Nebraska's pass offense take advantage of a defense that had really been struggling against the pass in Michigan State? Now, for the most part of the game, they didn't. And I think a big part of that was, no matter what anybody says, was the play calling based on the wind. Not as much the wind, but the play calling based on the wind. And then the other part was is that not having the ball for as long as they did, I think did take them a little out of the rhythm. And then, of course, as you can talk about, couple sacks, that one drive where they're in great field position after the punt return, they have 3 sacks, lose 32 yards. That's just, you got to be able to take advantage of sudden change. I bring that up all the time. It was one of the bad ones because you got to figure that out. You got 2 interceptions by Singleton. One drive goes 7 plays, 7 yards, ins and downs. The next one after the pick, 3 plays, 2 yards. Singleton's like, I'm doing it for you guys. Take advantage of it. Barney's punt return down to the 26. You lose 32 yards. Got to make that happen. That's when you have to make it happen. We'll take a break. We'll come back on the other side. We're going to chat with our friend Stephen M. Sipple, talk about what he thought about the game, and then, of course, eventually getting ready for the first road game of the season, heading to a Maryland team that's playing better than most people thought they would, but still got their first loss yesterday against Washington. More severe reaction here on 1620 Zone. Welcome back. Severe reaction here on 1620 The Zone, 402-951-1620. We are heading to the phone where our friend Stephen M. Sipple, who is a huge fan going into the game of Aiden Childs. We'll see how he feels about him after that game. Joining us here on Severe Reaction, Sip, what's up, man?
Took an L on Childs, it looks like.
What did you say?
I took an L on that Aiden Childs conversation. Although
I feel bad for him, though. He got beat up, man. Damn.
He got beat up, and he can run it now.
Yeah.
Nebraska did a good job. I give Nebraska a lot of credit. We'll get into the discussion. But, yeah, I don't know. He didn't play that well. His numbers throwing, obviously, were substandard. But I don't know. I give Nebraska a lot of credit in that conversation.
Yeah, Sip, I think the thing we don't talk about a lot, and we bring it up. So bye week comes around, you're like, hey, they're going to work on fixing things. Michigan State probably went in and said, our pass defense sucks. We've got to do something to fix that. Nebraska said to themselves, our run defenses suck. We got to fix that. You saw two teams that I think what they prepared for, they were pretty good at defensively yesterday.
Yeah, I think so too. Right? I if you want to start with the defense, that's the thing I come away with. I look at it a little different now. I saw a level of ferociousness, some playmaking, some guys that kind of look like they're moving to another level. I'm talking about like a McCullough. It looks like his game is rising. I'd say that about Nwaneri. Javin Wright played really well yesterday, I thought, for most of that game. Singleton's playing well. They got some guys over there now, and it looks like there's some increase in confidence. There was some fire yesterday that I hadn't seen. Maybe you saw it before. I hadn't seen a lot of it, but I saw it in that game. So that was really encouraging. They handled Childs well. Got loose a couple times, obviously, was hurting him with his feet. But I thought they did a pretty good job handling that late as the game went on.
Yeah, you got to start with the defense because the defense won the game. I mean, if you look at the way they played, 2.2 yards a rush, that's 3 yards less than they've been giving up this season. I mean, that's incredible. I will say about the defense, what's going on with the quarterback sneak? They snuck the ball 3 times, and one time 4 yards, the guy walked in the end zone. Another time, a backup quarterback snuck it in from the 2, and then in the middle of what's going on with the 5-man front that Nebraska played yesterday where they couldn't stop the quarterback sneak? That was weird.
Well, they're light. I mean, Nebraska's light up front. You'd agree with that. I can't diagnose it without like isolating on those plays, but I just would say they're light.
Have you ever seen a guy do a quarterback sneak from the 4-yard line and go in standing up?
And going standing up? No, I was dismayed like you.
Yeah.
I know I haven't seen that. But I'd have to look what happened. Their center's good. I know that.
Yep.
Michigan brings in a very good center. So I don't want to make it something I'm harping on. It happens. They'll address that.
So before we go to the offense, we all knew Mike Etler was going to make the special teams better because it couldn't get much worse in terms of some of the ratings. What stood out the most from just watching these 5 games about what the special teams is doing now under Mike Etler to you?
Well, they're in this instance for sure. They changed the game. They affect games.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't even seen one of the main impact players do it as much as we'll probably see in the future, and that's Archie Wilson. He's a weapon.
Yeah.
And so we've seen that, but competency, just general competence, the lack of catastrophe. I mean, we saw utter catastrophes, and it got to the point where if it wasn't a game where you identify at least one catastrophe, you'd kind of say, okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Now instead of experiencing nightmares, they're creating nightmares.
Right.
It's been quite a flip, really, right? And it could be better. That's the thing. It hasn't. They've missed some stuff. They missed a block against. They could have blocked a punt against Cincinnati, and it lookably didn't. Right? You watch that film, Dane Key. I don't know what he was doing. If he just gives it all hell, he would have blocked the punt against Cincinnati. But I think that block punt was a great testament to coaching and players buying in, because they knew that if Michigan State gave them a certain look, they were going to get it. They talked about it all week, and there it was. And then
Okay, now that's one thing.
Yeah.
Coach it and have it in their mind. That's another thing to actually do it. And Jameer Cusser, you give Jameer Connor. He was doing it in practice, but then you got to take it into the game.
Steve Sipple joining us here from Husker Online. So Sip, the thing that stands out the most to me is think about how many times a punt returner caught the ball with no one in front of him over the course of the last 4 years. How many times do you see Ja'Cory Barney catching the ball with no one in front of him? The people who are blocking the gunners are doing so much better job than over the last 4 years. That really stands out to me.
Oh, it really does. Every time Ja'Cory caught it yesterday, there was field in front of him, and that you're right. Now some of that's low punt. They had
wind,
you had to do it yesterday in that wind. But no, they're handling the gunners. You remember Bill Callahan always used to talk about vice in the gunners, and they're vice in the gunners. I imagine that's just emphasis. You just gotta find guys who can do it and then emphasize it.
Yeah,
and they are, and it's happening. And that's, hey man, you opened the discussion with defense and special teams, and that stuff looks like that's going to have to, at this point in the season at least, that's going to have to carry it, or carry a lot of the weight.
Yeah,
not all of it, but carry a lot of the weight, and they did yesterday.
Hey Sip, sometimes analytics and eyes don't match up great. So what's your thought on the offensive line scores from PFF and what you saw watching the game yesterday?
I'm having breakfast with a friend in Lincoln right now, and I was driving down here downtown, and Sean Callahan, my cohort, told me about the grades, briefed me basically, and for your show, and I was utterly confused. I mean, so much about football confuses me. I mean, sometimes I think I got it down. I wrote a column basically very critical of the offensive line. It wasn't the subject.
Yeah.
It wasn't the only subject. It was a wide-ranging column, but I was critical of them, and I feel like an idiot. I don't know what to make of the grades. Dylan, apparently it's more on Dylan. That's what it suggests, because Dylan graded more poorly than anybody on offense. So I don't know. What do you make of it?
Well, this is what I always tell people about the offensive line is, and this is kind of the same thing for cornerbacks, right? So you make one mistake, you're going to remember that one mistake. You could have 8 good plays in a row, but you're going to remember the one mistake. For offensive tackles, they might have 3 or 4 do really good job blocking, and then they get beat on one. So you think about that. There were 2 really bad blocking assignments by Pritchard that stand out in your mind. But I think a lot of them was Dylan not getting rid of the ball. That ball's got to come in it's got to go out of there in under 2.1 seconds in this system. And I don't think he's doing that. And that's making part offensive line and part the offense a little stagnant. That's what I think.
Now this is where football gets confounding. So it'll almost be a guy, and I don't get up and watch the coach's tapes. I don't have it.
Yeah.
So the question becomes: Are there receivers open? I mean, that's the other part of the equation that's been critical.
What's open, Sip? What's open? Tell me what open is. That's the question that needs to be asked. What is open in the Big Ten?
Now it gets philosophical. I don't know.
Yeah.
I hope that they're taking into account pass rush, and there's hot routes, and he knows what he's doing. I don't know.
Yeah.
What is open? That's a good question. From just off the cuff as I'm watching the game, they gave up 5 sacks.
Yeah.
Nebraska. How many of those are on Dylan? I don't know. Now, off the cuff, though, I'm watching and thinking, those guys are getting to Dylan pretty fast. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
And he's holding it. He's standing in there and holding it, but there's a 290-pounder on him. There's no easy answer, but the grades, we're talking about Pro Football Focus grades, suggest that it wasn't necessarily on the line.
So when I ask you that question on what's open, and this is what I always say to people, if you got pretty good sized wide receivers right now. Barney's smaller, right? But you got good sized wide receivers. If the ball is between your wide receiver and on the other side of the wide receiver is the defensive back or the whoever, that's open in the Big Ten. That throw's got to be made. And I think Dillon tries to be too perfect at times and doesn't make those throws, worrying about what could happen bad. That situation when that ball has to come out. You actually saw it a couple times with Childs. He made a couple throws where guys were completely covered. I remember the Andrew Marshall one, completely covered, and he still made the throw in there, and his wide receiver made the play. That's, I think, something Dillon's got to get better at.
Yeah, it's a trust thing too, and you got to trust your receiver in that situation.
Yeah.
And you wonder, I mean, I guess as you're talking, I'm thinking about bigger bodied guys. Dane Key is that. Dane Key he didn't catch a ball yesterday.
Didn't two targets, that's it.
Yeah, so that's the kind of guy I think about in that situation.
Well, Quinn Clark is a 6'5" kid, Keelan Smith got a couple of plays in there. Obviously, Lindenmeyer's a big guy. Harburg's a big guy. Those are the kind of guys I'm talking about. You got to fit the ball into them.
Yeah, I'm sure that's the kind of thing that's being discussed right now with those guys. They're working today. They work today. These kind of things will be discussed. And I always got to remind myself, Dillon's a sophomore.
Yep.
Early in the sophomore season, and they don't have a great running game. It wasn't bad yesterday. It's just not. I don't know that they trust it. And I think there's also this part of the conversation that's important is I think they'd like to line up and hammer away, but if you only have one running back, it's hard to do that. And I just don't know that they just don't have enough behind them, in my opinion. That's my opinion.
Nebraska's running backs, 17 carries, 103 yards. So that's actually not bad compared to what they did on Michigan State side. That's not bad at all. That's
good.
It's efficient enough.
But where was it? I mean, and Wyatt first and goal on the 7, are you throwing it 3 times?
Yeah.
Is you just not trust it? I mean, that I'm pinpointing some things, which isn't fair.
Well, that's why it's 3 things. It's not just Dillon, not just the offensive line, the play calling too. I mean, he's got to call what's going to work based off of those other 2 factors, how good the offensive line is and what Dillon can do.
Yeah. I mean, it's tricky. Football's tricky.
Oh, yeah. It's very common. Let me ask you about this, though, because I'll let you go get your breakfast game on. Let me ask you this. Okay. Mental fortitude has been something, too, over the last 4 or 5 years that we've questioned. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that? Because there's been a couple times, even in the Michigan game, where you saw mentally this team step up and do things. How do you feel they've adjusted with that in terms of this season?
Oh, my God, Michael. I mean, I'm glad you asked. I think it's improved dramatically. You did see it against Michigan. I thought in the second quarter they might just go away, Nebraska.
Yep.
Didn't. I thought in the third quarter they might go away. Didn't. It kept coming in that game. That was a big takeaway from the Michigan game for me. Yesterday, same thing. I thought at 21-14 Michigan State it was trouble. I mean, I felt personally that sense of doom we've all felt so often over the years here. But you're not seeing that from those guys. They're not going away. They have some. I think there is mental fortitude, but there's also dudes over there that can make plays now.
Mm-hmm.
The roster's a little bit better, or maybe I'd go just better. Those guys I mentioned earlier in the conversation are real. Now, Isaiah Hunter is real.
Yep.
Ja'Cory Barney is real. They're dudes now. That play that Hunter made, he got a great block from Evans, but that speed, that raw speed and explosion makes that happen. Barney's catch, same thing. And Dillon made a great throw on that catch, the key catch in the fourth quarter, was it late third or early fourth, the 45-yard catch. Those are just guys making plays. And now they have them. And I like I said, on the other side of the ball, you're seeing that. I mean, some flat out dudes now, like Deshaun Singleton, McCullough, Winery. I hate to start naming Shavers. I'll miss it, guys, but those are explosive guys that come to mind.
Yeah, I think the other guy that's going to be that is Dawson Merritt. Every time I watch him,
God, yeah.
I say to myself, that dude's going to be a dude. He is.
100.
Yeah.
100. He started. I mean, he's in the lineup.
Yeah. And you know who we don't mention enough? Andrew Marshall and Sierra Wright. I know they're both physical guys who get some calls on him, but Andrew Marshall was all over the place yesterday. Everywhere.
Yeah, he made those 2 huge stops late.
Yep. Back-to-back plays.
Yeah, he's a player too. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned both those guys. I mean, hell, Sierra Wright might be the best player on the defense.
Yeah.
Yep. Best overall guy. I mean, I think he might be. I didn't even mention him. So, yeah, there's some stuff to work with now.
I know next week.
That explains some of the, being able to win close.
Yep.
Being able to hang. Sometimes it's mental fortitude, but it's also just having the guys who can play.
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt about that. So a brother can make a play for you. I know we won't be able to chat with you next week because you'll be coming back from College Park, Maryland. But have a good time out there. Don't get yourself in trouble. Don't do any Mark Sanchez stuff, and have a great rest of your weekend.
I won't assault anybody in an alley. Thank you, Michael. Hey, thanks, Michael. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Sip. We appreciate you coming on with us. You never know with Sip. He can get a little temper every now and then. We come back. Keys to the game, how Nebraska did with that, and looking at some of the more questionable things that happened in terms of some drives. We'll do that as well. The reaction brought to you by Equitable Bank. We take banking personally. And Nebraska Medicine. Join our team, nebraskamed.com/careers here on 1620 The Zone.
One of 5 on third down is Michigan State from their own 41-39. 3 right, 1 to the left, snap to Childs, back to pass, 4-man rush, floats it right, too tall, it's intercepted on a tumble to Sean Singleton, has his second career pick at the 45 of the Spartans. There's your big play for the Black Shirts. Snap to Childs, 4-man twisting rush, Childs hit as he throws near left, it's intercepted, picked picked off. It's Deshaun Singleton again, making another second pick of the game for Deshaun, and another drive that will start in plus territory.
Yeah. Even at halftime, the coaches kept saying, like, come on, you did the defense. Come on, guy. I'm like, we need pep talks. They scored 7 points. Like, we need a pep talk. What are we talking about here? So it's just growing. I thought John Butler was awesome today. Like, on the headset, he was fiery. He was scary almost. Like, the Philly in him came out. And I think a lot of our guys hunted and played well. So, like I said, this team scored a bunch of points again last week against USC. I mean, they're a good team.
Welcome back. Severe Reaction here on 1620 The Zone, 402-951-1620. Nebraska heads to Maryland next Saturday. Game opened 5.5. Nebraska a favorite. Most places it's sitting at 6.5 currently. I do some sixes out there as well, but Nebraska probably about a touchdown favorite going out to Maryland, a team that had every opportunity to start 5-0. Had that chance. You have Washington down. Washington traveling all the way across the country. We know that's been very difficult for West Coast teams. Got off to a slow start. But 24-20, Washington comes back and beats Maryland. So Nebraska gets them coming off of a loss. I mentioned this earlier. I think Nebraska will be ranked. I think they will be ranked in the top 25 when everything comes out later today. Just based off of some of the losses. A team like Georgia Tech, where they are, I think they're now a top 16 team. What happened to Penn State, what happened to Texas, I don't know where those teams are going to end up. Where you decide to put a team like LSU, I don't know that either. I think they're probably like 15 or 14. But when you start looking at that back half, the top 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, Nebraska at 4-1 with the win over what's being shown as a pretty good Cincinnati team. And really dominating them defensively, especially through the air. And then this win over Michigan State at home, I think that they'll be ranked. There's always a chance they're just outside of it, but I think they'll be ranked going into the game against Maryland. Keys to the game going in, I asked the question of whose house? Peter, whose house?
Whose house?
Whose house?
Our
Run's house. Run's house. Run DMC.
Whose house? Our
Whose house? Run's house. The question was basically in the keys, whoever wins the run game. I thought whoever does a better job of running the ball and stopping the run is going to win this game, mainly because of the wind. Also because I think they'd be prepared for Nebraska's passing game a little bit more. Both teams rushed for 2.2 yards per rush. But, of course, in there you have the losses of all the sacks by Dylan Raiola. You just go with the running backs. Nebraska's running backs, 17 carries, 103 yards. Pretty darn good. Pretty darn good. I would say that it's kind of a draw overall, but when you go into what Nebraska was coming into the game and what they were considered in terms of giving up over 5 yards a rush, over 150 yards a game, Nebraska did a hell of a job. Total rush yards for Michigan State, 84. They were allowing over 150 coming in, man. The running backs for Michigan State, 23 carries, 62 yards. Give me that all the days. Nebraska wins the battle of the run game, and they win the game. Number 2 was about eye discipline, because Aiden Childs has been a pretty good ball handler, and they run a lot of that stretch where he comes off of that. There's a lot of reverse motion. They run a lot of trick plays too coming in. Nebraska only gave up 1.5 yards rushing on first down. That was great. They held Michigan State to 2 of 14 on third down. And even though there were a couple of plays where you lost some backside containment, which I was worried about, especially with Childs, and of course you had the touchdown run, and then you had the run by Frazier, the throwback pass early in the game. Other than that, I thought Nebraska played very well in terms of their eye discipline on defense. And then the last one was, if you have a drive and it doesn't get home, what is it? It can be a waste of a drive. But yesterday, Nebraska did not do that. Nebraska crossed Michigan State's 40-yard line 6 times, got in the red zone 3 times, and got 2 TDs and a field goal out of the red zone ones. And, of course, 31 points overall on their successful drives. That's over 5 points a successful drive. That's where you want to be. You're over 5. They're at 5.16 yesterday. You are in a great spot to win games. And something I've talked about in the past. If you want to consider Nebraska to be in that top 4 or 5 in the Big Ten, if you want to consider them to be somebody that's considered at the end of the year to be a candidate to be in the playoff or just go into a New Year's Day Bowl, 2 things they need to do. They need to be top 40 offensively in points per play and top 20 defensively in points per play. They get to that point, the wins will come. Currently, Nebraska is 20th in offensive points per play, and they're 31st in defensive points per play. Not exactly where we say they need to be, but that combination of 20 and 31 is the highest combined combination they've had in more than 15 years. So what they're doing, both offensively and defensively, points per play, is good enough to get to 9, to get to 10 wins based off of the analytics. We'll see what happens in terms of all the other little things, but if you continue to dominate starting field position, you continue to be where they're ranked in terms of points per play, you get your finishing drive rate up, and then you end all of that with better red zone, you're a 9, you're a 10-win team. We'll take a break. We'll come back. Severe Reaction brought to you by Equitable Bank. They take banking personally. And Nebraska Medicine brought to you by Nebraska Medicine. NebraskaMed.com/careers. When we come back, some of the stats we follow for the year and more of your phone calls, 402-951-1620. That's how you get a hold of us here on Severe Reaction on 1620 The Zone.
Dillon stays in the game at the 25. Emmett Johnson single back left. 3 receivers near right. Lindenmeyer tight end right. Snap to Dillon. 3-man rush. Steps up, slides right, slings one near right. Caught! Across the field, at the 40, 35, and shoved out of bounds in a Spartan 32. Josh Eaton runs him out of bounds. Had to have it. DR delivers 45 yards to Ja'Cory Barney. Count 21-14. The Huskers left to right, 2nd and 3. Spartan 23. 2 receivers, tight left, 1 to the right. Johnson the single back. Snap from under center. Handoff Johnson. Swerves right to the numbers. 20, 15, 10. Fundraise touchdown. Huskers. EJ 23 yards. Swerving to Pater. And the Huskers are pulling after away from tying this thing up. Life indeed. It looks like the Huskers got it. At the 27, Nebraska ball! The up man, Jay Coyne, dropped it. He was trying to battle with the wind. And it's picked up by the Huskers, Makai Nelson.
Yeah, I think they're all going to be like that in the Big Ten. Did Penn State lose to UCLA? Yeah. So, I know I say it and everyone kind of rolls their eyes at me, but this is what every week's going to be like in the Big Ten now, right? Like you're going all over the country. Every game's going to be a battle. There was the win obviously had somewhat of an effect on both teams today. You can see even the punt game, just the field position, like we kept hanging the ball up and it was going 25 yards. Part of the reason why we went for the fake punt, I called it the fake punt. That's not on Eck. That's on me, so I'll take responsibility for that. And thought we had a great shot at a big play, and just their kid made a nice play. So credit to them.
Welcome back. Sphere Reaction here on 1620 The Zone, 402-951-1620. I always find it interesting when what the coach says right after the game, because you have certain thoughts going in the press conference, and then you hear them and you go, okay, those were the things that stood out to them just on first blush. And, he brought up a couple times the last drive and giving up that score, brought up a couple times, going for it on the fake punt, and he was fine with it. And he thought, they should have gotten it. He thought it was a good call. Talked about Dylan and his fire that he had and getting upset a couple times. Once right after a false start, he spiked the ball. You saw him kind of getting fired up a little bit after a sack. He says, angry Dylan. Dylan wasn't sure if the word angry was the right word for it, but fired up Dylan is the best Dylan you can have. So he was going, that's the stuff he kind of right away he brings up. And that's what was important to him coming out of the game. It's always interesting to see that, what the coach says right after the game. Then on Monday, you see them after digging into the film, looking at their grading system, all of that, and then you kind of get a better idea of how the game went. Yesterday, starting field position, I mentioned this. Nebraska had a 16-yard starting field position. Nebraska's own 47-yard line is where their average starting field position was, and Michigan State was the 31-yard line. Just amazing. Havoc Plus, which I'm calling it, which is basically just adding up the tackles for loss, the sacks, PBUs, hurries, forced fumbles, interceptions. Michigan State had 19 along with the 5 sacks. Nebraska 21, 4 sacks, 12 tackles for loss. Got after it, put good pressure on Aiden Childs and the backup quarterbacks, whose name I'm not going to even try to say. In terms of overall pressure, and this is from Pro Football Focus from Husker Online, I appreciate them putting this up, but in terms of overall pressure, 11 QB pressures, 5 sacks, 4 hurries, 2 quarterback hits. 4 were charged to the offensive line and running backs. 7 were charged either to Dylan Raiola or simply coverage sack down the field. The Spartans blitzed Raiola 10 times on 10 plays. He was under pressure on 10 of 33 total dropbacks, which is not a lot. When under pressure, Raiola held the ball for 4.05 seconds. That's 2 seconds longer than he should, compared to 2.39 seconds when kept clean in the pocket. Huskers' lowest graded overall player on offense was Dylan Raiola. He also had 10 yards on 3 scramble plays. Another first down among that, too, by the way, getting another first down in terms of that. And then the other stat I was talking about, finishing drive rate and where Nebraska is with that overall for the season. For the season, against Power 4 teams, so just Cincinnati, Michigan, Michigan State, they've had 18 successful drives out of 34. Pretty good rate. You want to be over 50% with your successful drive rates. They're over that. 78 total points, which puts Nebraska at 4.33 points per successful drive. Much better than last year when they were below 4. They were in the 3.7 range. And 2.29 points per drive. So out of those 44 drives, that is efficiency. It's not as you'd like to see it a little bit better if you're clicking or if you're operating on all cylinders. You'd like to see a little bit better. But compared to what Nebraska was last year, big improvement, big time improvement in terms of successful drives, finishing those successful drives, and getting points off of those. So good. And a big part of that is is Dana Holgorsen. I did a comparison. I don't know if John ended up talking about it on Sportsman Iconic, but I did a comparison the year before, 23, right? And then the last 4 games of 24, and you compare them to what Holgorsen was in terms of finishing drive rate and success rate compared to what they were before that under Satterfield, it's day and night. And then when you add these 3 games so far this year, it even makes it a bigger chasm between what they had before and what they had now. Oh, real quick before we take a break, something that Coach Rule brought up a couple times as well, hard to win in the Big Ten. We know that. I was talking about this yesterday with John Bishop on 1620 the pregame show. And he was saying that he'd be disappointed if they didn't go 4-0 over these next 4, including yesterday. And I said, I would not be, because I know how hard it is to win on the road, 2 games coming up doing that, how hard it is to win overall in the Big Ten, because you just can't make mistakes against these teams. Your motivation's got to be right. Your body clock's got to be right. It's difficult. And so if Nebraska does manage to go 4-0 over these next 4, completing, starting with yesterday, they managed to go 3-0 over these next 3. That's a hell of an accomplishment, even with the fact that they're going to be favored in all those games. Even though it's 2 games on the road, it's a Friday night game over a short rest. If they end up doing that, that is a huge accomplishment. I thought 3-1 made the most sense to me. That's where I thought they would be before the beginning of the season over these 4. And so, as Coach Rule said multiple times, and as you see by some of the losses and wins, winning in the Big Ten, it's not easy. So take these, be happy with 4-1, be happy heading to Maryland with a chance to get close to starting as well as they started back in 2016. All of that is something to be excited about. We'll take a break. More here on Severe Reaction. We come back here on 1620 Zone.
Emmett Johnson, the running back left. Can they take the air out of the ball here and churn some game clock? Keelan Smith, the motion man from left to right. Snap. Quick screen near left. Leaping catch from Hunter. Leaks through. Breaks an ankle tackle. There he goes. Hunter 40. 35, 30. Hunter all the way. That just might be your dagger. 6:45 to go. 30-21 Nebraska. 2nd and 4, handoff, Johnson up the middle, swerves into the end zone. Touchdown Huskers. The exclamation point and the hat trick for EJ. 3rd touchdown for 21. It's 37-21 with 4:27 to go.
Well, he came over to me in the middle of the game and was like, "This is me and you." And, that struck me. And then we went out there and scored. And he was just trying to tell me to take my energy because I was juiced up to the team and everybody. So what I told him, I said, "Coach, I don't know if I can say this, so I won't say it, but I said, I got blood in my eyes. Like we're going to win this football game, and I wasn't going to let it slip away." And so, it's something you train for in the whole offseason. You wait for a moment like that, so you got to jump on it when you get it.
Welcome back to the reaction here on 1620 The Zone, 402-951-1620. Brought to you by Equitable Bank. Equitable Bank, where we take banking personally. Brought to you by Nebraska Medicine. Join our team at nebraskamed.com/careers. Let's get into a sensitive subject. Honestly, how bad was the coverage of that game yesterday? I obviously went to the game, and so I rewatched part of it coming home, and then the rest of it when I got home. And I've known Tim Brando as a broadcaster since I was 10. Timmy B worked in Louisiana. He's from northern Louisiana. He did TV around the Saints and stuff. So I've known of him for like 45 years. It's a long time. And Timmy B struggling. Overall, the broadcast quality isn't as good on Fox Sports 1. That's what you get when you're at Fox Sports 1. But the commentary, the mistakes, I can understand when you make mistakes based off of something you might have missed, you didn't see it right. But when you have your facts incorrect, when you can't figure out who a guy is that scores a touchdown in Carter Nelson, when you openly complain and say that a punt returner signaled for the fair catch and they didn't, when you are so confused about a sequence of downs, you think it's 4th down. And I know it can be difficult inside the stadium because when it's 3rd down, they take all the ribbon boards and all the boards and they try to get everybody fired up. So you can't just look up and see what down it is. Now you're keeping track as a play-by-play guy. You've got a spotter. I think Jack was his spotter, he said. So you should know it's 3rd down. He thought it was 4th down on that first touchdown for Nebraska because he said, okay, they got a decision to make right here. And then he couldn't figure out that both Harburg and Raiola were in the game together. And it was Harburg giving to Raiola, giving to Barney. He struggled with that. It's just sometimes you get to a certain age, and it happens to all of us. Look, there's a reason why I don't do 5 days a week radio anymore. I mean, I'm older now. My brain does not work as well as it used to be. I used to never forget anything. Now it's just not. I was not at my best, so I thought I was going to be giving my best to the people on the radio, so I had to move on. Timmy B struggling, and then it doesn't help him that he has a color analysis guy who sometimes I have no idea what he's talking about. I know Devin Gardner was a good athlete in college. I know he had some time in the NFL. I remember him as a quarterback and as a wide receiver and all of that, but he's all over the place with his analysis sometimes. I don't get it. And again, when you're making factual mistakes, that's an issue. That's going to drive both fan bases batty. When you mispronounce someone's name, that's going to drive them batty. But when you're making just basic, I guess at one point, and I didn't hear this, but I guess at one point they said that Nebraska's punter was the punter that was a 2-time All Big Ten punter. We know that Archie's first year, this is his first 6 months in America. Forget being at Nebraska. So obviously that's not the case. But it's just strange, man. I don't get it. At some point, I mean, we all saw Al Michaels and his struggles on Thursday, and I felt it was tough to watch. When a guy is confused like that, and if you have older parents, you know, and you've seen your parents do that, it's tough. And watching Al on Thursday night and then listening and watching Tim Brando yesterday, man, we all get to a point where we just don't have it anymore. And you have to move on. It's tough. You know, I tweeted out that it was a rough broadcast. Ken says on Twitter, it was laughable for sure. I lost count of the number of times Brando and his partner provided incorrect information, and the impromptu side stories have to go. I bet Archie didn't even know he was the Big Ten punter of the year over the last 2 seasons. Yeah. You know, a long time ago, our good friend Stephen M. Sipple said, maybe there are too many games on TV. Maybe there are. Maybe there are too many games. Maybe I don't have enough crews. Rick says Brando was especially bad early on. He was certain Barney called for a fair catch in the second quarter punt. Then something about Harburg on the Wildcat when they got Raiola out of the game. This is the kid that had to play the position in the game in East Lansing in 23. He was, yeah. And then people don't like the score bug either. I know that there's a lot of score bug haters out there. They get very upset about the score bug. Apparently people did not like the score bug. That's something they complained about as well from Fox Sports 1. He says, Jake says, it's just TV, though. Watching the game usually gives me all the info I need. I agree with that. You know, there's a lot of times where I'm watching so many games that I don't have the volume up, or I have the volume up and I'm not really paying attention to the volume. But it's true. But what the commentary should do is it brings more to the game. It enhances both your knowledge and information and enjoyment of the game. That's what it's supposed to do. You watch a guy like, I throw Kevin Kugler out there, setting up the information, giving you what happened, and then also at the same time anticipating what's going to happen next so he's prepared for the call. That's important. Messing around and joking around in the booth, sometimes you're not spending the time to anticipate what's coming. And maybe you get caught because of that. You know, even with the fake punt or the block punt, they were talking about something else. And then, you know, boom, it happens. I mean, that's something you got to always anticipate. You know, especially in a situation where the wind's blowing the way it is, and it makes sense for a team to try a fake punt there because they're punting into this high wind. But, you know, that happens sometimes. I just don't get how you can have such varying broadcast. You know, we can always go back to Colt McCoy's first broadcast when they put him in a really bad situation with Nebraska against Colorado for his first call. I mean, his first call probably should have been a high school game or something before that. But, you know, I feel bad. I feel bad when folks get to a certain age, because I know I'm feeling it at 56. You know, I'm sure guys that are in their 70s, and Al Michaels, I think it's like 80, 81, something like that.
Yeah, I think he might have just turned 80.
Just turned 80? Yeah, that's...
Yeah, 81 in November.
81 in November. It's your eyes go, your brain isn't as sharp. You know, my mom's 89 and she's incredibly sharp, but I don't want out there calling games. You know, at this point, I don't want to do that. Anyway, we'll take our last break. If you want to get a last phone call, 402-951-1620. When we come back, we're going to preview Maryland and where they are. They have a very, very good freshman quarterback in Malik Washington. They're fun to watch. As always, they have talent. But we'll talk a little bit more about what the challenges Maryland presents to Nebraska for next week's game, the first game, official game on the real road, a real road game. We come back here on 1620 The Zone.
Gillen takes a knee, and the Huskers win this one 38-27. First win in the Big Ten for the Huskers, getting set to head on the road for the next 2 games. Had to dig deep, had to find a way from a 14-0 lead to a 7-point deficit. And then the Huskers went on a roll in that fourth quarter and stretch out to a lead that eventually gets clinched into the 4th win of the year. Final score, Nebraska 38 and Michigan State 27.
You know, offense is so much rhythm. Like Dana, you know, he kept trying to get in rhythm. Finally they hit that big play on the wheel. And credit to Luke Lindenmeyer. Like, he's supposed to pin the end lined it up outside of him. Luke just turned out and blocked him. Dylan went up inside, and they, you know, I was really proud of Dylan today. Like, you know, early on there, I was kind of like, hey, you know, hang in there. And he just, like, you know, he kept getting angrier and finally exploded. But I think it was more like that, just long stretches without the ball and trying to get back out there. And that's what Michigan State does. They run the ball and they try to eat up clock. At one point, they were like 2 of 10 or something, or 1 of 7 on third downs, but he was just making plays on the scrambles. And you know, we sacked him a bunch of times. Probably would have sacked him way more if he wasn't so elusive.
So I just knew that I wanted to get out and make something happen. And you know, Jacory ran a great route, and they cut him loose, and then we made that play, and then kind of felt from there we were rolling. So, you know, we just stood in there. We kept swinging. They kept swinging, and man, it feels good to get the win with making those plays down the stretch.
Welcome back to the reaction here on 1620 The Zone, 402-951-1620. Let's go back to the phones. It's where Mike is not there. That's fine. Nebraska and Maryland. So, okay, it's really weird. Like, I watched 2 Maryland games. I watched very little of yesterday. I'm going to go back and watch that probably tomorrow morning. But anyway, when you think of Maryland over these years that Loxley's been there, what do you think of in general? You think of a pretty good offense, usually dynamic, really good wide receivers, because they always produce wide receivers. You're talking about an offense that gets things done, right? That's usually what you think about. The defense this year is what Maryland's leaning on. They're only giving up 12.5 points a game. They gave up, obviously, 24 yesterday. Their offense, they don't have one category with their offense that they're ranked in the top 40. They don't. Points per game, they're 65th. Yards per game, they're 100th. Third down conversions, they're 88th. Red zone scoring, 85th. Their offense doesn't look anything like I'd expect a Mike Locksley offense to look like. So the comparisons, when you look at Nebraska's offense versus their defense, that's going to be a great matchup. But the other way, and you look at Nebraska's defense versus their offense, that should be pretty successful for Nebraska, because Nebraska's got, you know, in points per play, points per game, yards per game, yards per play, all of those, Nebraska ranks in the top 25, going against an offense that ranks outside the top 50 in most of those categories, sometimes outside the top 100. They don't run the ball much. So that, again, plays into Nebraska's defense as well. Maryland only runs the ball about 37% of the time. They're one of the highest percentage passing teams in the Big Ten. Again, matches up well with Nebraska. In terms of their turnovers, they're +1 turnover margin. Nebraska's +1 turnover margin. They're -1.5 opponent turnover margin, which is really good. 3rd in the country in opponent turnover margin. Yeah, they're pretty good turnover-wise. Penalty-wise, this is something that Nebraska, you worry a little bit about, but Nebraska opponent penalties, pretty good. This is a good matchup for Nebraska. 105th in opponent penalties for Maryland. And Nebraska is 26th in penalties per play, and 23rd in penalties per game, and 25th in penalty yards per game. So Nebraska's doing a really good job of not getting penalties, and Maryland's opponents have actually been getting penalties. So, and then field position. Yeah, Nebraska advantage here as well. So, I mean, you look over all these numbers with Maryland and Nebraska, you see a lot here that makes you feel good about just the pure matchup. We're not talking about, you know, who's going to win the game at this point. As you didn't hear earlier, Nebraska is a 6.5-point favorite as of this morning. But if you just look at the overall numbers, now Malik Washington is a very quality quarterback who can do some things with his legs and do some things with his arm. If you look at them as a pass offense, they are completion rate is 75% for Nebraska, and they're allowing 62% pass completion. Good matchup. Their completion rate's only 57%. Nebraska's allowing under 50% completion rate at 48%. I like this matchup. I thought the number would be around a touchdown. I think that's where it's going to eventually be by the end of the week. But if you're going to go on the road to start your season off, as you know, in terms of going on the road for the first time, you want to go to a place that it shouldn't be a hostile crowd. College Park is never a hostile crowd. It's a lot of former Nebraska people that are living out there in the DMV that'll be at that game. I don't know if they get 10,000 or not, but you know, there's a lot of people that went to Nebraska or Nebraska fans that live out there, so you'll get that. Game time isn't a bad thing. That next week where you're playing Friday night on short rest against Minnesota, that's a little bit different. But I think it's a great matchup for Nebraska. It's a great chance for Nebraska to move to 5-1 and put themselves in a situation where I think a lot of people thought they would be at this point. I think the loss to Michigan obviously is disappointing, but this is just keep going week after week, week after week. Again, want to remind you, dedicating this whole rest of the season to our friend Matt Verzal. Did a great job always wrapping up the game on a Sunday morning with his hangovers. And so we're going to continue to try to do that and respect Matt Verzal for what he did and shout out to him every single week as well. We'll be back next Sunday morning, wrapping up the Maryland game here on Severe Reaction on 1620 The Zone.